Hey, it's Marilu, and this is the Let's Blom podcast, a chilled, safe space where not so chilled conversations happen for woman by woman. Let's jump into it. So a lot of you are probably wondering, why is she starting a podcast? A lot of you are not surprised that I'm starting this podcast and believe that it's probably long overdue because you probably know the main reason why I'm starting this podcast. Okay, let's get straight into this episode. Top 5 reasons why I am starting the podcast. I talk too much, okay? I talk too much, and I'm sure that the people that love me or claim to love me are sick and tired of how their eardrums feel when I'm done making my point or trying to engage with them on a conversation that's been on my mind for a while, or just what I just saw, or just my reinterpretation of something that just happened. And yeah, let me tell you a story actually. I remember being awfully young. Probably I can remember this memory in primary school and high school. I used to get home from school and I would go straight into my mom's room, and it's been the entire day, obviously, that I haven't seen her. And I would try to tell her what happened, and I'd walk into the room, and she would pretend that she's sleeping. So if that gives you an indicator of how overwhelming it can be, I thought I'd just go ahead and just put it on a voice memo and share it with you guys. So that's reason number 1, okay? Reason number 2, I wanted to strengthen the woman community that I already have built over the years. I think a lot of my projects that I've done and participated in and involved myself in and even founded is really rooted in this community of womanhood and really strengthening their experiences, their stories, and having a platform to share that. This is probably the biggest reason why I'm starting this podcast. Is there's so much to talk about, and there's so many, and dare I say, different random pop-ups, little pockets of life that happens to us as women. And what better way to just have a discussion, invite a couple of guests over and just talk. I think there's a lot of healing in talking and unpacking and trying to forge a way forward for ourselves in figuring out what is it that happened to us, what is it that we're experiencing, and how can we better navigate moving forward. And if it helps us individually, then I sure think that sharing the experience would help someone else that's listening. I honestly believe that there's power in unity and creating this safe space, this chilled space for us to share our victories and to share our struggles and just blooming a little bit, Also, listen, send us your voice notes if you need to vent, sister, okay? Because this is that official site for us to ras a little bit. So let's do it. Another reason why I started this podcast was in 2018, I spoke to a really incredible woman, and I do hope that we get to have her on the show, Dr. Glennis Petersen. And I texted her, I think my daughter was about April, May, June, July, August, September, October, November, 8 months. And I remember I sent her a message and I was like, I just want to chat to you about something. Do you know any woman that really, 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 really excelled? And by that, I think I meant at the time in terms of career, after having a child unplanned and raising her single. And this was a very tough time for me. I was going through the most, single mom. And I had to completely stop my creative endeavors, of which I don't think I really did. I think I did a lot of writing and a lot of production at the time. A lot of writing. I released a poetry book in that time, and I also was preparing to release a music EP, which was I released it in 2020. And I remember just honestly wanting to have a conversation with her about this. And the reason why is she's always that go-to person, the person to talk to when it comes to life stuff, just like being authentic and honest. I think she's one of the women that I know in my life, and she's one of my mom's colleagues, and that's how I met her. And she attended one of my very, very first shows, and I just remember connecting with her on a soul level. And so she said, listen, this is not a conversation for a text message, come over. And I remember her telling me, why don't you start a podcast? Why don't you start a talk? And I was like, no. But I do remember thinking that this is the seed that's planted right now. And I do know that when the time is right, it's going to ripen up and really make its way through the soil and sprout. And I think, so I definitely think that the conversation with Dr. Glynis was part of the sowing that made sure that this podcast, is touching your eardrums right now. Okay, moving on to number 4. I'm a big believer in representation, okay? Dr. Glynis, colored lady from Helenvale, born and raised, she's also an author, and she's a colored woman, and she's done really well. And I honestly think growing up in the northern areas has opened up my eyes in such a way, and has also really been an influence in how I love my life, because I really think that resources and being exposed to things changes the Can ek nou nie Engels praat nie? The trajectory of your life. Yo, die Engels is so toeskla. Okay, anyway, so gotta represent, man. You know, when I see people doing what I would deem as ahead of the time, or moving as a pioneer, or being a trailblazer, I look at what embodiment is this person. You know what I mean? Who, like, what does a vessel look like? If that makes sense to you. And it just gives me confidence. That's how I've been able to do so many things that I've done. It's engaging with people who've done it before me, that have walked the path before me. And I'd like to see that it's mense soos ek, you know. So, side note, if hearing my voice and hearing my accent encourages you to also want to do this, then I look forward to listening to your podcast. I look forward to listening to what you have to say, because we all have something valuable to offer. It's whether we believe it or not that makes the difference. Okay, so here is number 5, number 5.1, 5.2, 5.3, until point 10. Okay, let's talk about finding out that you have ADHD when you are an adult. Okay, let's talk about you realizing that first moment that men actually feel so entitled to you. Let's talk about gender-based violence. How about we talk about patriarchy and misogyny? How about we talk about the double standards of society? How about we talk about our self-esteem and just building confidence and trying again? How about we talk about all of the facets that include womanhood? How about we talk about all of that? I want to invite you back here to come and blom with me every second week, okay? Honey, because it's about to get real. It's about to get uncomfortable. But you know what? In order for us to really grow, in order for anything to really grow, it has to get uncomfortable. It has to get a little bit painful. It has to sting a little bit. You know what I mean? That's what the evolution of life is. Look, that's what trees go through when it gets pruned. At the end of the day, we want to move forward as individuals and as a unit, okay? Let's talk about motherhood. Let's talk about reparenting ourselves. Let's talk about mental health. Let's talk about our spirituality. Let's talk about these things so that we don't have to feel alone, okay? So that we can understand that we're not the only ones that's going through this. So yeah, that in a nutshell. Oh my gosh. See, I told you I talk so much. Okay, I promise you on the next episode we will have a guest and it's going to be exciting. I'm so excited to share with you. More importantly, you know, I really want to share with you, and I want to wish you the absolute best, whatever space you find yourself in. I really, really hope and pray that you can understand that whatever it is that you're going through at this specific point, it is going to be okay. Okay? That's my top 5 reasons why I started this podcast. Right. So thank you so much for joining me on Let's Blom. I'm your host, Marilou, and I will see you in episode 2. This podcast is proudly sponsored by Zazo Entertainment.